Forest, and Merry Christmas. I hope that all of you had a wonderful Christmas holiday, and I'm so glad that you are joining us here. This upcoming week, we are not having church services here in person. Instead, we are participating together in something that we like to call Sabbath Sunday. Once a year, we pause from our typical Sunday rhythms, so we have no volunteers running around the building, no kids in KidVenture, no services here in our worship center, and we participate together in this day where we really try to receive the gift of rest that God has for us. Now, don't get me wrong, Sundays are the best. They are my favorite day of the week when we get to come together and worship Jesus together in community. And thank God it comes around every 7 days. Still, in Scripture, we see that God has this rhythm of carving out time for His people to receive rest. And if we're honest, we need that. Our calendars are full, our minds are constantly spinning and being inundated with information. Even the good things in our lives can create chaos and noise. So once a year, we get to step out of that rhythm and participate together in this Sunday of rest called Sabbath. And hopefully, if this is your first time experiencing Sabbath, you'll experience the joy that it can bring and begin implementing it as a weekly rhythm for you and your family or your community. So this Sunday, instead of gathering here in this room, we're inviting you to participate in this day of rest wherever you are. And our team has created this video as well as a collection of content and resources for you on our website to help guide you in preparing for and living out your day of Sabbath this week. I want to encourage you to not just look at this as a Sunday off from church, but to experience this as a Sunday with God. So let's kick back and relax and jump into Sabbath Sunday at Lake Forest.
We always thought about Sabbath as just, this was a day you didn't do any work. You know, from our grandparents and mom and dad, and you just didn't do any work on that day.
Right. It was more a day of don't.
Yeah.
Don't do this, don't do that.
Right.
Reverence. A little bit of family time because we always did lunch together, but it was more a day of what you don't do. Well, this year when we went through the practicing way and talked more about it and learned more about it and really embraced it as a day of taking in God's love and taking in His rest to our soul and trusting in Him. I think that's how it changed.
Before that, a lot, we never really would sit down long enough to really rest, you know, and just rest in the Lord. And now we do our Sabbath from Saturday evening to Sunday evening, kind of that 24-hour period there. We will start out with some scripture reading.
And then we typically have a meal. It can be the two of us, or it can include family, or it can include, like last weekend we were at a wedding. So it was a celebration. We included that as part of our Sabbath.
After we have our meal, usually we just kind of rest. One thing we do is pretty much turn off the phones, turn off the television. We do a lot of reading, both books and scripture and different things. And some of the books we read are spiritual-based books, and some of the books we read are just for fun. You know, come to church and worship.
We do Sunday lunch at our house, which is Sunday lunch with most of my extended family. So we just consider that part of our Sabbath celebration, to be with them and connect with them.
What I would tell anyone that's considering or wanting to practice the Sabbath is to start. Just start. You know, whether it's a 2-hour block of time, a 4-hour block of time, a half a day, you know, whatever. You know, we're in a different season of our life. We're retired, and I can certainly appreciate where everyone is that is still working. But just start. Just find some time during the week where and I think it's important for you to do it together with community. Then, you know, you've got accountability partners built in at that point. You know, and Sonia and I hold each other accountable to it. She'll tell me, you know, you think I'm going to do that? I said, don't wash that laundry. So, I mean, you got accountability built into it.
I encourage anybody to try it and see if your week doesn't go better. You think you're giving up time to get things done, but somehow that time is given back to you.
Give it back.
You do. But actually stopping and saying, no, God, I trust you. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to take this time to sit with you. And maybe that is reading scripture, or maybe that's just sitting with him.
As I walk through the woods, I'm reminded that Sabbath is one of God's greatest gifts for us. It's not something we invented. It's something that he gives to us to remind us that he cares about us. Sabbath is a place where we rest, where we're invited to come to the one who created us, who knows us, and who delights in us, and wants us to experience the deep rest that he has for us. God knows how quickly we drift apart. And so he gives us Sabbath to recenter us on who he is and how he's created us, to remind us that it is he that gives us the kind of rest that we truly need and desire. Sabbath isn't about checking off a box. Instead, it's about us seeing who he is and being able to enter into the kind of person and rhythms that he calls us to. I think about Jesus when he was on this earth. He called us to do things like remain in his love. He called us to obey his commandments. And what he said that in doing that, we would experience his deep and abiding joy. And when we practice Sabbath, we have an opportunity to experience his joy, his delight, as we obey commands like the Sabbath. The goal of the Sabbath is not to practice Sabbath. Instead, it's to apprentice under Jesus. You see, Jesus was the one who called us into this lifestyle of being unhurried, a place of delight, a place of being kind to one another, a place of being truly present with others. In a sense, Sabbath brings us to this place where we get to be more and more like Jesus. But the question is, how do we do this? In the midst of our rushed and hurried lives, how do we make space for this time of rest? So we're going to spend some time just talking with some friends of mine about what this looks like in different seasons of our life. Well, guys, I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yeah, me too. We have 3 small kiddos, so Sabbath looks a little bit tailored to them and their experience. This is something that we wanted to cultivate for them and for them to enjoy and look forward to. So it typically starts around a table just like this, where I've cooked a meal, and I typically like to cook for our Sabbath meal. You know, I spend a lot of my week, sitting down and thinking and reading, so it's good for me to do something with my hands that's more restful for me. And so I'll cook a meal for the family, and we'll all sit down, and we'll usually kind of prompt everybody that we're starting Sabbath by lighting a candle. It kind of gives them this tangible practice, which is really good for kids, just to signal that something is happening, something new. And so we light a candle, say a prayer. There's even a special liturgy sometimes that we use to welcome the Sabbath. And we just enjoy our meal. And then during the meal, we actually pass around this thing called a gratitude. And it's a little cube that has different prompts on it for things to be grateful for. So everyone will take a turn, and we'll just start listing things that we're grateful for. So we'll do that, and we'll then kind of transition to some fun family time, spending a lot of time together. At our best, we transition to maybe some worship songs. I'll even get out the guitar, and we'll do that. And then we usually let the kiddos decide what fun, delightful activity that they want to do that night, whether that be playing video games as a family, playing a board game like Ticket to Ride or something like that. And then as we transition to the next day, it's really just a posture of rest and letting the day come to us. So much of our days with 3 kiddos is we wake up and we have places to be and things to do. We're pulled in a lot of different directions, so this is a day, Sabbath is a day where we kind of let the day come to us and just let it stir up delight wherever we can find it. And then, usually at the end of our Sabbath experience, we try to cap it off with a meal as well. end that time, to kind of create this ritual at the beginning and the end to say, all right, kids, now Sabbath is over. Yeah, that's kind of our stage of life. And I do anticipate moving forward with, kids getting older and teenage lifestyles, that all of that's going to change. And I know that you can speak to that.
So I have 3 boys, and I remember when they were in that middle school and high school years where there's so many different pressures that would want to take the kids away from their things that they do. And as a couple, Laura and I made the decision early on that built into Sabbath is a place of community and of worship. And so with worship, we felt like Sunday morning, with our schedule with the kids' sports and music and all the things, we just really need to really protect our Sundays from all the other competing voices and different opportunities. And so we made it a very consistent practice that we would have Sunday worship together as a family at church, and that was also the time when they had youth group. And so it built in really well that they had community with their friends and other folks on Sunday evenings and on Sunday mornings. But as the kids got older, middle school, high school, it got harder and harder because my kids also like baseball. And they were always being called upon to say, hey, would you like to play on our travel ball team? But my wife and I made it a very conscious decision, which was a very difficult decision, to say we don't want Sabbath to work around sports. We want sports to work around Sabbath. So we had to make some tough decisions on how do we protect our Sabbath, which we had on Sunday, from all the different things that creep in. But God really honored that. And even though sometimes it was a difficult decision, God honored that in helping us to create some rhythms of just rest, of family time. One of the things that's probably, if you'd ask my boys, one of their favorite experiences was as they got older, we'd invite some of their friends to join with us on our Sunday afternoon lunch. And we'd cook a meal together, kind of like you guys did. And they'd bring 10, 15 of their friends, their college roommates, and dorm mates, that kind of thing. And we just enjoy time together, in an avenue like that. So those kind of things, there was always a time, a little nap, there was time for some fun together as well. But worship and community were always 2 biggest parts of when the kids were teenagers, all the way through when they were in college. How about you, Becca? How's this at your stage of life?
Yeah, so listening to you is making me realize how much simpler planning for Sabbath is whenever you're really just planning for yourself. I'm realizing too that is a part of the challenging aspect of doing Sabbath on your own, is that there is no one to hold you accountable. I don't have a partner or family to look at me and say, hey, you're touching work on Sabbath. You shouldn't be doing that. So I have invited friends to do things with me. Usually that is the movies. That's my activity to kind of unwind my brain. It's rather than getting involved with my hands, I'm still thinking critically about something, but I'm thinking critically about a film and a story rather than something that I have to contribute to. It's already been made for me and I'm just enjoying it. I love going to see live theater, so I love that we live close enough to really quality live theater. And engaging in things that I want to do, not that I feel obligated to do. There was a time in my early 20s where I started to feel really convicted, really encouraged by mentors and pastors in my life to start implementing Sabbath intentionally, not just a day off, but like we say, a day with God. And I, during that season of my life, neglected any sort of spiritual practice throughout the week because I was trying to cram in all of the work and productivity. So all of the work as far as my job, but also all of the house cleaning and chores, because I wanted Sabbath to be this holy, set-apart day where I would essentially try to behave as much like a monk as possible and not speak to anyone and be just in my Bible for 10 hours a day. And that was not sustainable for a season of my life. It also, if I was doing all of my spiritual practices just on Saturday, by Wednesday I was, as Aaron likes to say, a crusty person. I wasn't engaging in spiritual rhythms throughout the week. So I think as I've gotten older and learned the necessity of regular spiritual practices throughout the week, it has freed up my Sabbath to be, yes, about worship and prayer and scripture and all those things, but having a daily rhythm of not checking my phone for the first hour and a half of my day. And instead engaging with scripture first and things like that. It has helped me to not feel like I have to load my Sabbath with 12 hours of intense, over spiritualized practices and experience God as I go and doing things I enjoy as well. So that's kind of what Sabbath looks like for me as a single adult in this season, but I imagine it looks even more different for someone who has had kids in the home, experienced Sabbath with a family that has grown, and then now the kids have left home. So what's that like?
It really does shift. And one of the things I've learned and I'm trying to practice is preparing for the Sabbath. Basically, my Sabbath is from Thursday night to Friday night. And from Thursday night is when I begin to talk with my wife about what is tomorrow going to look like. So she can be aware of what rhythms I'm going to do, what kind of things I'm going to make will take up my day. And so we'll talk that over, and then on Friday morning when I get up, I almost always go to a certain place in the house, and I love worship music, so I will listen just a couple of songs. No purpose, just to listen, to enjoy those worship songs. It just kind of sets me in the right place. And then there's just usually time in prayer, time in the Word, things like that, some time just reading. Part of my Sabbath is actually when you think about doing something you delight in. I love to bike or hike in the woods and things like that. And so for me to usually a bike ride somewhere or a hike somewhere is part of my Sabbath rhythms because it just brings me great joy. I feel closer to God and all that. Part of my Sabbath also at this point is to just spend a meal that with Laura and I have together, or invite some people over for a meal kind of thing. So different kind of things like that we just plan into the day. And but again, it's like what you guys talked about. It's a place of saying no to certain things and being intentional about things that will really bring delight, rest, and just seeking God together. So those are some of the new rhythms in the season of my life.
Yeah, well, I hope that us sharing kind of some of our experiences with Sabbath would inspire everyone to kind of reassess this invitation from Jesus to take a Sabbath. And so whatever season you're in, we've actually come up with some resources to make this a little bit, to feel equipped, for you to feel equipped to practice Sabbath this Sunday.
We also want to say that we really can't wait to see you in the new year. We're really excited about our sermon series that we begin on January 4th, where we are diving into the last book of the Bible together, and that is Revelation. We really believe that God has something special for us as a church community in this season as we dig deeper into this often misunderstood book of the Bible. You don't want to miss it, and we will see you next week.